Ernesto.
Hello.
How's your first week been?
It's been tough. It's been tough adjusting to this place. They work you hard here, let's say.
A lot of workplace bullying happening, a lot of ribs.
There's always going to be maybe a slight initiation, but, mostly just keeping me busy is trying to keep up with all these dang classic matches we've been having over the past 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, there's certainly been a lot of those, and, I hope everybody's holding up okay. Ernest, I hope you're holding up okay. For those that don't know, this is the New Japanophiles, or just New Japanophiles. We may have even dropped the. I'm not sure. Have we dropped the?
I think we're having a meeting on Friday about that.
Oh, yes. Russia sent me a memo about that one, but this is New Japanophiles.
You never check your email, dude. You got to check your email. I
don't. Who does? You do?
I do. It's a pretty simple part of the job, I feel.
You're an email guy.
Yeah.
Like Hotmail.
Do you have to be in 2017?
I don't know. I guess I let my shit pile up, and I guess I thought everyone else does too, but this is New Japanophiles, the newest podcast here on the Wrestling Audio Revolution podcasting network. And like I said, I hope everybody's holding up because the world is fucking crazy right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, life has been so good with all this great wrestling, and then just really now just the sad part of the G1 being over, and then also the Nazis, that also being a sad thing.
Well, you know what? Nothing makes Nazis, neo-Nazis, KKK, white supremacists, alt-right more extremely angry than hearing a bunch of white guys gush about how a Japanese guy beat up a white guy.
Absolutely, that works. Or how a Japanese company is beating up an American company.
Indeed. So yeah, that's why they call us New Japanophiles, everybody. And we're going to jump right back into it where we left off, I think. We're going to just quickly go through the rest of the shows. And then we're going to sort of round it off with the A block finals. We're going to round it off with the B block finals. And then we're going to round it off with the finals.
A lot of rounding to be done.
A lot of rounding. What does that even mean, to round something off?
We're going to find out in the next hour or so.
Well, that's all right. That's okay. Well, why don't we get into it, Ernest? And again, it's very good to have you here, and I hope the last little while has been good, sort of doing the transition. I always figured there was a reason why Shotgun Shan hated JBL so much, and I think it's because they're so much alike. I know about some of the things he's been doing since you came on board.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And sometimes you see a little bit of yourself in someone, and maybe you don't like what you see.
Yeah, how's Sean been with you? He can be kind of cold.
He's been okay. He's probably sick of me, coming into his office every 5 minutes being like, did you see this last night from the G1? And oh my gosh, this fourth last match was amazing. So, I'm kind of he's now got me on a clock of how long I can actually be in his office per day, timing it. But otherwise, it's all good.
That's awesome, man. Well, just to give everybody a little preview, too, for the main event here when we talk about the finals of the G1-27, which everybody knows by this point was Kenny Omega and Tetsuya Naito in the finals doing the big rematch from last year, which, was that your match of the year last year in 2016? I know it was up there.
Yeah, I think in the end it was my number one, just shading the Tanahashi-Okada match from the same tournament, and maybe also Nakamura-Sami Zayn. Those were up there for me.
Very, very true. I like both of those matches a lot. But again, to preview this and just sort of give you our firsthand experience, we actually got together to watch that one together, not live, but we got together with a dear friend that we had mentioned on the last show, Sir Charles. We got to visit the home of Sir Charles.
Yeah, well, I love going over there. Whenever you go over there, that Charles is in charge. And, they treat you like a king, and only the big matches, we're busy people. We don't get to, get together for these all the time. But, a big match like the final, it's got to happen. And it's at Palais Chucky.
Well, he doesn't live downstairs, but we were downstairs, and he was in charge. So we had a hell of a time, and we can sort of maybe give his reactions to some things. I know it's been kind of cool, even just over the last few days, we've had the DMs happening and all that. Who would have thought at this age and in this year that we would be trading so many wrestling-related messages on the reg?
Yeah, no, absolutely. For me, a little over 7 years ago, or maybe about 6 years ago, I was not sending any messages related to that subject at all whatsoever, not paying attention to anything. And then, things came around, 2014, 2015, you showed me some stuff, and, well, there we are. And, I think I just passed it on to Charles, and I think a lot of people got a little bit more exposure to New Japan through the departures to WWE, superstars like Finn Balor and obviously eventually Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles, and Guns and Gallows. And so I think that made a lot of people seek out the product, and that's sort of how I, passed it on to him as well. So it's good timing, at least. It's a good time to be a fan of it.
Indeed, and this was your first G1 as a New Japan World subscriber, correct?
Yeah, well, at least, the first year that I really followed along. I had the access last year, but mostly just watched matches after they had happened, not following show by show. But,
right.
Yeah, it's, we're going to talk a little bit later, I'm sure, about how much it takes a lot out of, the wrestlers and their bodies and stuff. It takes a lot out of us just trying to keep up with all this, so... we'll obviously talk a little bit more about that, but it was special. It was special. And definitely, again, other than the Nazis, the worst thing of the week is that it's over. It's not here anymore.
It's true, and that's what I was just going to say, because we complain even sometimes, especially in the middle, which we're going to talk about some of those middle shows, and I don't even know how much you've watched of them, and I've kind of cherry-picked. I haven't necessarily watched everything on these shows, first few ones that we're going to talk about, but it's one of those things, you're kind of bitching near the middle. You start bitching about how much you have to keep up with, and
yeah.
I don't have time for this. But then when it's over, within hours, or definitely by the next morning, you're feeling like a kid come 7 p.m. on a Christmas.
Yeah, I was going to say, December 26th for sure.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I do feel like I'm happy that I didn't catch all of the matches that I wanted to catch, because now I can, over the next month or so, kind of go back and watch a few things. And I think this is maybe the first show we're going to talk about, or I might have the date off, but even just like a Kota Ibushi Yoshi-Hashi, not expecting anything great there, but just Kota Ibushi wrestling,
right.
It's, to me, that makes it a must-see regardless.
Right, and you might see a loose explosion, right?
You never know when the boom might go the dynamite.
Serious question, if he's not talking about diarrhea, what is a loose explosion in terms of being in a wrestling ring?
I don't know. Maybe he's not tight. He's feeling really kind of loose, comfortable,
that's
really, really good ring presence, but then just an explosion of offense kind of thing.
Right, and he was Nakamura's young boy, and who's looser than Nakamura?
He's extremely loose. Yeah,
very loose. That's very good.
He could explode at any moment.
Because I understood the explosive part. I just was not really understanding how you do it loosely in a wrestling ring. But you're right. There is a loose style, and maybe that's sort of being Nakamura's young boy. That's sort of where he picked it up. So that's amazing. Okay, now we're going to pretty quickly move through these first few, I think. A block, night 13. So Kota Ibushi defeated Yuji Nagata. Bad Luck Fale defeated Tomohiro Ishii. Goto defeated Yoshi-Hashi, Tetsuya Naito defeated Zack Sabre Jr., and Tanahashi defeated Makabe. Did you see any of these matches from Night 13?
I don't believe I did, no.
Okay, well, what you need to watch from this, everybody, and what you need to watch from this, Ernest, Tanahashi and Makabe was actually a pleasant surprise. It was much better than I thought it would be. Naito and Zack was very good, but the match from this show, and one of the matches of the tournament, at least before the finals. The last 3 nights are really, it's hard. I don't know if anything's going to come close to those last 3 nights. I'm just going to tell you that right now, but I know that you have some questions for me sort of as we round off this show. But Kota Ibushi and Yuji Nagata was absolutely phenomenal. One of my favorite matches. Yuji, I thought he killed it, in this tournament. I really did. I think he had a lot of really good matches. He had a good one with Goto, I think, on the very first night. He had a really good one with Ishii. And this one with Ibushi, it was great. It was just everything that I love about Yuji Nagata, the facials, all the really stiff offense, the kicks, and the submissions. And then, of course, Ibushi being Ibushi, doing the scrapping, but also bringing a bit of flash to it. And 2 of the MVPs of the tournament. And I don't know if that's maybe going to be a question that you ask, who is the MVP, but I'll tell you right now, those guys are 2 of the people I would think of if you asked me that question. Yeah,
absolutely. And just speaking of Nagata, the Tanahashi match as well, which I know we did discuss in the last episode. I did go back and watch that one, and just the intensity of that, the slaps back and forth. So you're right, Nagata was definitely a huge part of the tournament for sure.
He was on point.
Yeah, but obviously Ibushi also just, everything the guy does turns to gold. But I'm definitely looking forward to watching Zack Sabre Jr. and Naito. That's definitely one on the must-watch list for me that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, now Gedo definitely got quite repetitive, I guess you could say, with his booking of the legends. What a contrast it is, the way that he books the legends that are like total icons in the company and can still go to some extent, just compared to how WWE would do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. They put the world title on the guy. Even if he can only wrestle 2 minutes, he can only wrestle 2 minutes without getting blown up, and they got to keep all the matches short. They'll still put the world title on the guy. And here you got Gedo, like, whether it was Liger in the Best of the Super Juniors or Yuji or Kojima, 3 icons, and they all got the same treatment of the one victory. And I think that is a little repetitive, but it is kind of interesting to see the way they use their legends compared to how we do here in North America. Good old North America. So anyway, moving on, B Block, Night 14, Yano defeated Tamatanga, Kojima defeated Sanada, Elgin defeated Suzuki, Juice defeated Omega, Evil defeated Okada. 2 big upsets back-to-back to close this show off. Ernest.
Incredible matches, both were fantastic. Kenny Omega, Juice Robinson, typical Kenny Omega really working on a body part. And boy, the Elite are really in a Bret Hart state of mind these days. Of course, the Young Bucks using the sharpshooters at will at this point. But how about Kenny Omega with the outside the ring post figure 4 on Juice Robinson in this match? It was just great. And, one of the things that you had mentioned to me before watching that match is just, the crowd reaction. And the pop specifically for the Juice Robinson win was just outstanding. And then the second match, which I think this sort of, altercation will come up, I think, later in our conversation, but Okada and Evil, just a stellar match. And, good for Evil for being able to kind of hang with Okada and have, one of the better matches of the tournament. And, as you mentioned, the shock of the fans with the result. And interesting for me booking to have Evil survive 2 back-to-back Rainmakers. I thought that was a bit wow. Is that belittling the move a little bit? I don't know. But otherwise, just a fantastic match. And you go ahead a little while, because I think I have a couple other points I wanted to make about this.
Well, as far as the Evil win over Okada, do you want to address that now, or would it make more sense to address that when we talk about the B Block finals?
Yeah, well, I thought that's maybe what you would want to talk about. Let's mention it now.
We can bring it all full circle at the end if you want. I don't mind that, because again, 2 upsets back to back. The Evil one, obviously, the more shocking of the 2. What I will say right now, before we get sort of to the way that this story sort of plays out, for people that don't understand how little Okada loses singles matches and how big of a deal this was. Okada hasn't lost a singles match since last year's G1. That was the last time Okada was pinned 1, 2, 3, or made submit, or even count out or DQ in a singles match. So that's how big of a deal it was. That was 1 year in the making since last year's G1. I don't even know who the person was. I know Ishii got the victory over him. I'm trying to remember who else he may have had losses to in last year's G1. I don't remember off the top of my head, but again, that was the last time Okada lost. So a huge deal. It felt like the crowd was blindsided, but in a pleasant way, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of, to be honest, I see both sides of it. The idea of maybe it should have been Kenny to be the first one to finally get that victory over Okada. Maybe they should have done it this way. But I think for the spectacle, the enjoyment of just watching it, I would say that I would be in favor of it, because it was just a really cool moment, and it elevates Evil. And and it was just such a great match either way, regardless of
and as much as I understand when people say that, or say, this could have really made Kenny, I think what people need to remember, and myself included, because I did feel the same way when it happened. I was like, wow, this is awesome, but that should have been Kenny that got the first win in a year, especially with the fact that he's wrestled him twice. First time he lost, and second time was a draw. But I think what people need to remember is Kenny's made. Kenny is made right now, even without beating Okada. The top 4 in that company are Tanahashi, Kenny Omega, Naito, and Okada. Kenny is in that top mix, and he's going to continue to be in that top mix. So he's made, and I think the feeling was time to bring someone else up. We can't just settle on 4. We got to start building the next And whether Evil was the choice to be the guy that you sort of strap the rocket to, which definitely happened in that match. I mean, that you can debate that all day long, but I think he's really proven himself to be a hell of a worker, and is certainly LIJ is a very over faction, and they're really one of the big money makers of the company. So I think the feeling was, okay, Kenny's made, and it's time to bring someone else up now. Elevate them in some way. So that really worked for Evil. As far as Juice, you talked about the crowd reaction. How about Juice's reaction to that win?
Absolutely. He seemed so stunned by it all. And I think an F-bomb within about, 3 seconds of the 3 count.
Not even an F-bomb. It was like he was channeling our old friend Marge. He was like, what the fuck?
It was a little Marge-esque for sure.
Yeah, but that was
great crowd reaction.
No, and great reaction from him, and the whole facials laying sort of when he was like laying down in the aisleway, just couldn't even believe it. That was tremendous, and they didn't make that match too long. I don't have the time for that one, but I know it wasn't that long. It kind of came out of nowhere as well. So back-to-back upsets. Whether you should have done those on the same show and back-to-back, that's up for debate as well. But I thought it worked. If it works, it works.
Yep.
Elgin and Suzuki is another one I would suggest that people watch, and that will come up later in the show because that was not a one-off. Elgin did get the win over Suzuki, who is the never open-weight champion. And that's not the last time we're going to talk about Suzuki either. That's for damn sure. Now, A Block, Night 15. Yuji Nagata defeated Zack Sabre Jr. That was Yuji's one win in the G1, 27. Kota Ibushi defeated Yoshihashi. Bad Luck Fale defeated Haruki Goto. Tetsuya Naito defeated Togi Makabe. And Tanahashi defeated Ishii. Did you see anything from this show?
I did not see anything from this one, no.
All right.
But I've heard good things about Tanahashi, Ishii, and that's definitely another one that's on the to-watch list.
You know what I really liked about that match was it was none of the crazy shit. There was not really anything in that match that you would consider dangerous or career-shortening or anything like that. And, for guys like Ishii, we're kind of used to him doing these matches, these unbelievable, crazy, wild matches. This match, to me, we all know how good Tanahashi is as just a pure wrestler. But this one really showed off how great Ishii is as well. I mean, people sort of get this weird impression of him that he's just this guy with a hard head that can go out there and take a bunch of punishment and never get hurt, and that's all he is. And that's couldn't be further from the truth because that guy is a fantastic worker in the purest sense of the word. So definitely got to suggest people go and watch that main event of Tanahashi versus Ishii. As far as other things on there, there's solid shit up and down these cards. If you were just bored on a rainy Sunday afternoon, you just felt like watching matches from the G127 that you hadn't seen yet, you could still watch a lot of these matches and be completely entertained. Yuji Nagata, Zack Sabre, for instance. Kota Ibushi, Yoshihashi, for instance. It's not going to be, if you only are going to watch 4.5 to 5-star matches, then yes, don't bother watching it. But if you're just bored on a Sunday and you just want to watch some dope wrestling, you're still going to get it. So there's just an endless supply of it. And I think, I don't really have too much more to say about that. Even Naito and Togi was good and everything, and, Naito was pretty fucking banged up at that time, too. He's had quite a serious shoulder injury that's happened throughout the tournament. And
there's a shock that guys are getting hurt from this tournament.
Yeah, definitely. And, of course, Tanahashi, I think I had said on the last show he had a separated bicep, which is not true. I'm not even sure you can separate your bicep. But I believe he has like a torn or ruptured bicep. But anyway, a serious injury that should keep him out of the ring, nonetheless.
Absolutely.
And when you consider that, especially going into this match with Ishii, even more that amazing. So this was really almost like the purest Tanahashi match that you could have in the G1 this year. And, he had a lot of matches, like with Nagata, for instance, that were kind of brawls, but you'd think the Ishii one would be the brawl to end all brawls, and it wasn't. So I thought that was really dope. They totally just sort of went left with that. B Block, Night 16, Tama Tonga defeated Kojima, Juice Robinson defeated Yano, Elgin defeated Evil, Kenny Omega defeated Sonata, Okada went to a draw with Minoru Suzuki. I know there's like 2 matches that are really, really deserving of some time, so Ernest, I'll give you the floor.
Well, Kenny Omega, Sonata, I've really actually just seen the last couple matches on this show, but Kenny Omega and Sonata was fantastic. Sonata is definitely, I guess for me, I would say my young star of the tournament. I'm not sure how young Evil is. I think he's a little bit more in the middle between young and a bit more seasoned. But
I think they're around the same age, actually.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, both of them, it'll be a toss-up between them for sure. But, Sonata put on a really good showing, and they definitely sold a possible win. But eventually, Kenny obviously getting the win with the one-wing angel at 15 minutes and 3 seconds. And as for the main event, Minoru Suzuki, Kazuchika Okada, I think I need to go back and rewatch some stuff and obviously maybe watch a couple more things that I haven't actually seen yet. But I left walking away from this tournament that for me, this was the best match in the entire tournament. Kazuchika Okada and Minoru Suzuki. It just had so much to it. And I know one of the points you probably want to make, I'm going to steal it from you right now.
Feel free.
Is just the fact that they had a fantastic match earlier this year. I think a 4.5 or 4.75 star match earlier this year, headlining a big show, and it was amazing. But then they have this match in the G1. Obviously, they've got to shrink it to, 30 minutes, obviously, in the end. But it had such a different flair to it. It had such a different feel to it. And I think that is definitely a recurring theme throughout this tournament. We'll say the same thing about the next match involving Kazuchika Okada in this tournament after this one, is that they can just have totally different matches than what they've already had. And I don't even know. I don't know how they can do that, memorize all that stuff and learn all these different moves and everything. It really is an art. And this, to me, was one of the greatest examples of the art of wrestling in this tournament.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I saw a match that felt like a movie the way that this did. It took me out of just professional wrestling, and it put me in a place where I felt like I was watching a really Rocky, for the first time as a kid or something like that. Because it was just everything about it, from the way it was shot to the way it was lit to the sweat that would fly off the guys' heads every time they got slapped during the big slap exchange, which felt like it went on forever. I don't even know how long it went on. It might not have been that long, but it felt like it went on a really long time, but not in a way of I was bored by it or I wanted it to stop, but just I was screaming at my TV, Okada can't take anymore. He can't take anymore, Suzuki. Stop it.
He's already dead.
And that was not the last time I was doing that, by the way, in this tournament. It happened
sure.
on the B Block finals as well. But just a complete match in every sense of the word. And the funny thing with those guys too, they've wrestled so much. They've had so many matches together. You'd think that by this point it would be stale. They would have run out of ideas, and this match really was just something totally fresh and totally new for them. And
as you mentioned, just the camera angles, of the lighting, of the sweat flying off from the slaps and everything. It was just such brilliant television. And, just the intensity of it and, the ending and some of the looks that Suzuki just had in his eye. We talked about that, it was just, and of course, probably the best factor of the entire match for me was how blown away I was, but the fans cheering Minoru over Okada. I rewatched it and I noticed that, towards the beginning, there was maybe 100 or maybe a couple hundred fans chanting for Okada, but by the midpoint of that match and to the very end, you would hear literally 10 to 20 people chanting Okada and everybody else in that building chanting Minoru. And that just added so much drama to it as well. So just brilliant. And I'd have to say, for me, still my pick for match of the tournament.
That's it for you. Wow. You have a mature taste.
And even just, and this is weird, and maybe it was just, I was tired or something, but I also can't remember a match where I still felt affected by it the next day a little bit.
Yeah.
I found I'm working and doing stuff, but every now and then my mind just sort of going back to that, and I just feel, I don't know, something. But like you kind of said, like you just watched a really powerful movie or something like that.
Right. And that one moment too, they've been slapping each other. And when I say slapping each other, they were slapping the fuck out of each other, particularly Minoru. I noticed some of his left slaps were not really making as much of an impact, but those right hands were absolutely vicious. And, maybe this is the time to bring up the fact that, Okada comes into this match with a big bandage around his neck,
obviously super hurt. And so, of course, what is Suzuki going to do? Go after the neck and hurt it some more. There was also, I think I texted this one to you because I yelled out a bit for this one. Just at one point where Suzuki just sort of throws Okada into the railing or the gate, protecting the fans, and it looked like he pushed him way too hard, and just the sickening thud, and just that's where he's injured. You just, maybe we'll save the conversation for later of, should Okada have been in this tournament? I think we sort of had it last time too, but that was a moment where I was just like, don't they want Okada to make them more money? I know I said it last time, but I got to say it again.
Oh, man, I felt like that up and down the tournament, though.
Absolutely.
I also feel like at this point I need to really put it out there that I had sort of gone on in the last show about how, Suzuki's older, he's kind of finding some shortcuts in his matches, not moving as fast as he used to, kind of doing the old man sell, sometimes the Terry Funk, wave the arms, whoa, whoa, whoa. And a lot of the wild crowd brawling was sort of something you'd see in a lot of his matches. And call it smoke and mirrors, call it what you want. I just thought it was always made for a real entertaining match. This match had no crowd brawling at all. This was 30 minutes of Minoru Suzuki wrestling. Yes, he did some evil shit. Yes, he took him to the outside, and I think he did something where he wrapped his leg around the barricade or something like that. Yeah. Wasn't there some spot like that?
Yeah.
He did a few things, but for the most part, it was not the Suzuki crowd brawling smoke and mirrors match at all. It was 30 minutes of wrestling from a guy that's 50 years old. This guy is just fucking tremendous, and I don't know if there's anybody in the business with better facials in a company full of great facials. I don't know that there's anyone better than Suzuki, and when they're doing the slap exchange and it's been going and going and going, and Okada, his selling of the slaps, it was just unbelievable. But then it's it stops for a second and time sort of stands still, and then Suzuki just sort of leans down really close to Okada and squints his eyes really, really tight, and just has that sick little smile, and then the camera actually pans to Okada, and he's smiling, but then smacks the fuck out of him. Oh my God, there's just so much. We could go on and on and on about this match, but I mean, absolutely tremendous. People, it's a work of art, like Ernest said, and you got to go out of your way to watch it. Even if you're not a subscriber, find a way. I don't usually, encourage people to do that, but in this case, you got to see this because it was absolutely incredible. And Ernest, I know you love your high spots. I know you love your flying. I know you love your Kota Ibushis and your Kenny Omegas. I'm a little surprised that this was the match that you consider match of the tournament. But like I say, you got a mature taste, and I can't say you're wrong about that.
Well, and even just how about the fact of how late this match was in the tournament? Because for me, my favorite match up until that point was still the first main event, the Kota Ibushi Naito match. And so you think, by around the middle, towards the end, and obviously they turned it up for the last weekend. But this was near the very end of this tournament. So how these guys managed to pull that off is just absolutely remarkable.
And just the way that they were telling the story at this point with Okada too, he had lost to Evil. He was catching up to him. This year was catching up to him. He lost to Evil, and then here he is with Suzuki, and I think people figured, he beat him last, earlier in the year. Yes, it was a longer match. He had more time, but at the same time, I think most people figured he could, handle Suzuki, and he couldn't. 30 minutes went by, and he couldn't finish Suzuki. So what will happen with Omega if he can't, finish Suzuki? Omega went an hour with him, and he couldn't beat Omega. So it's the story was so great with Okada, and as far as the guy in the ring, what can you say other than if you said he's the best wrestler in the world, you wouldn't be wrong. Because that guy is just, from top to bottom, everything he does, whether you're talking his psychology in a match, his athletic ability in the match, his timing, which is absolutely impeccable, his selling, which is absolutely impeccable, and his resume of matches, even just take this year, for instance. I mean, everything the guy has done has been good to great to very great. Okada's incredible, and Suzuki, again, maybe the best Minoru Suzuki match since the AJ Styles match in 2014 G1. So, unbelievable, people. Watch this one. Now we're into the A block, night 17 finals. We're at the finals, and going into this, I know on the English commentary they had said that they thought Ibushi was still alive, And I don't believe that was the case by this point. Also, Fale, I don't believe he was alive at this point. I think it was down just to Okada and Tanahashi and Naito in terms of being alive, in terms of point scores. So this show, Fale defeated Yuji Nagata, and this was the big send-off for Nagata, which I think was quite the moment. I really do wish he had been able to beat Fale in this match.
Or even that they had a better competitor up against him on his last match. Or a better
competitor, yeah. His last G1 match. But a great moment and just awesome crowd reaction and very emotional from both Yuji and the crowd. So a great moment. Again, not necessarily going to recommend the match, but the post-match was money. Togi Makabe defeated Yoshihashi. Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Ishii, which was a fucking awesome match as well. Goto defeated Kota Ibushi, and Naito in the main event of the A Block Finals was the winner of the A Block and defeated Tanahashi. What did you see? What did you like?
Well, this show, to me, the card is excellent. Up and down. These are obviously some really good matches on paper. I've only actually seen the main event, but I mean, Ishii and Zack Sabre Jr. to me had one of the best matches over the 2 nights of the G1 in USA shows. I just loved that. And they did the thing where Ishii bit the ropes to get the rope break, or he was in the hold. He was in the octopus forever. So I'm looking forward to seeing the rematch here in this tournament.
Yeah, really good.
This is maybe the time, I guess, because it's our last chance to talk about Kota Ibushi and his participation in this G1 tournament, losing to Goto. Kota Ibushi finishing with 8 points, a record of 4 wins and 5 losses. Goto getting the pin over Ibushi in just over 11 minutes in this match. I want to get your take on the booking of Kota Ibushi in G1 27.
Interesting, very interesting. And as a talent, I think every single match he had was good, no matter who he was put in there with. He had some great matches, but then the other matches with the people that weren't as good, like the Fales and the Yoshihashis, were still very, very good. As far as the booking, I mean, he had got some pretty significant wins over Ishii, over Tanahashi, for instance, which I think, will lead to an IC title match. And we'll talk sort of as we finish the G1 talk here. We'll just quickly talk about some of the rumored matches for the Destruction Tour, because I could imagine that following Destruction that there may be something in the works with Ibushi. But as far as this last match, I understand it in a way, because Goto is always supposed to be that second-tier guy. But, a strong second-tier guy. And I think that the feeling was that him beating Ibushi here, at least it would kind of bring him up in the points a little bit. He's still got to be that second-tier guy. He can't be a third-tier guy. And I mean, Ibushi had a pretty good score, too, and again, some pretty significant wins. So again, and I don't know what the deal is with Ibushi. That's always the big question mark. Has he committed? We talked on the last show about the new shirt that's now on the New Japan site that you can order. But there's also just a lot of random, where the wrestlers pose in the New Japan shirts. There's a lot of random Ibushi shirts like that, or Ibushi pictures of him, with the lion mark shirt and all that, selling and hawking merchandise. So it seems like he's definitely involved right now. And with what they started following the G1, it really seems like he's involved right now. But we don't know, and so I guess maybe the feeling is we want him at that Goto level. We don't want him above that Goto level until we know.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense for sure. But I will say that I would have preferred that he was the runner-up and that it really came down to him and Naito in the group. Tanahashi, legend, love him. Obviously, great matches. This match with Naito was fantastic. Playing the heel, the back-to-back sling blades on Naito. I love that match. Don't get me wrong. That was definitely one of my favorite matches of the tournament. But I just feel that Tanahashi's already in an accelerated place with that IC title, so I don't really see the need for him to come in second in this one. And I do feel that the best match of this block, to me, was Naito and Ibushi. So if they had kind of put that at the end and made it, either guy wins, I think that could have maybe just elevated this block just a little bit. But I feel like at this point I am also kind of nitpicking, because the way it turned out was amazing as well. But just a slight grievance there.
Oh, trust me, I wish he didn't have losses to Makabe and Fale. I don't understand that part at all. But again, you can't complain too much when you had a win over Tanahashi, which anytime you beat a champion in the G1 usually means a title shot is coming.
For sure.
So, main event, Naito versus Tanahashi. They've had 2 other matches this year in big semi-main event spots. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I thought it was excellent. I love, at times in this tournament, when Tanahashi's, have to play the heel. Naito's obviously the most over guy in the company right now, so, you got to play to your strengths. You got to do what you got to do. But just so many fantastic spots. As I mentioned, that 3 straight sling blades just blew my mind. That was similar to the Suzuki Okada, where I was like, please stop. Like, he's dead. Like, stop doing this. But that, that was really compelling. All of Tanahashi's, usual great stuff. And we sort of had the conversation last time about, is Tanahashi slowing down and, his body. I mean, he shouldn't have been in the tournament because of his arm. I think I read somewhere, it might have been from Uncle Dave or something, that apparently Tanahashi is basically just saying like he needs surgery, and he's fine with having the surgery, but he just refuses to do it because it would mean he'd have to take 6 months off afterwards. And he says that's just not an option right now. But, to be in this tournament is so grueling. But in the end, he had some of the better matches. The Ibushi match, didn't see it, but I imagine the Ishii match, and then this Naito match. I don't know. He's still going pretty darn good for his age, that's for sure.
The Nagata match, too.
Yes, yeah, no, I forgot. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier.
Matches.
That was terrific.
And forget everything I said on the last show about Tanahashi. I mean, this was incredible, the performance. He was moving around great. And these guys, I mean, yes, it's so much bigger than the moves with them. I could tell you move for move what happened in the match, but that's not what's important. It was just the energy. It was just the emotion. Those last 3 nights in Sumo Hall, I mean, it's just great, unbelievable heat for all 3 of those main events. You cannot compare it to anything. I hear Uncle Dave talk about the Friday night Arena Mexico shows, which he says is the greatest atmosphere in wrestling right now, is those Friday night Arena Mexico shows. But I don't get to see that. All I get to see is this, and there's just absolutely nothing in pro wrestling that has this kind of heat, that has this kind of atmosphere, and it starts like from the opening bell, even before the bell. And it just continues. And this was the same building 3 nights in a row. People just get so invested by this point of the G1 once you're down to those A block and B block finals and then the finals. It's just electric, man. So this match was unbelievable and really, again, playing up the Tanahashi injury. Naito doing a lot of stuff. Did the drop kicks to the arm and all that stuff. And I guess Tanahashi working over the shoulder. So that was the story of the body parts, but it was this long-standing rivalry. Crowd definitely, backing Naito more than Tanahashi, and Tanahashi never afraid to play the subtle heel when that happens. He doesn't miss a beat. He just knows exactly what to do, and he's been pretty open. He's been really open, honestly, about the fact that he wants to have a heel run before his career is over.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I hadn't really heard about that. But yeah, I was just going to say, who knew strum of the air guitar could drive people to such anger and frustration? I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, and let me just make it clear. I don't think that he will turn heel. But I think these little moments that he gets to do it, I think he really enjoys it. And it seems that way. Both him and Okada, it seems like they have no problem doing that. So yeah, just a fantastic match, and the atmosphere, the electricity, just completely off the hook. So you got to check this one out. And yeah, Naito going over Tanahashi, getting the win, and moving on to the finals. Now we're going to talk about the B block, night 18 finals. The world wants to know. I mean, I'll read the results here. Juice defeated Michael Elgin. Tama Tonga defeated Sonata. Toriano defeated Suzuki. Evil defeated Kojima. But the world wants to know. Ernest Matthews. Omega defeating Okada. Omega Okada 3. Did it live up to the hype for you?
Absolutely. It lived up to the hype and even more. I think the most difficult question is, put them in order, like rank the matches. And to me, that's so hard. I need to go back and watch all of them and really, take the time to think it out. But, this match on paper, Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada, but with a 30-minute time limit, like just having that little stipulation like they do in the round robin, to me, that's 2 years in a row now that it instantly makes a match just guaranteed to be better, in my opinion, because they have to cram so much in such less time. If you really press me hard, I'd probably say I still prefer the second match of this 3-match series. But this one was so great, and just goes back to an earlier point, too, of just having different matches multiple times per year, and it just speaks to the just heightened talent of both of these guys, and as you mentioned, really all the big four in New Japan, to just reinvent themselves, reinvent their matches, and it definitely lived up to the hype.
And yet you'll still hear people saying, the people that don't watch, the people that don't know anything but WWE for the most part, you'll still hear them saying, oh, Japanese wrestling, it's just a bunch of hitting guys really hard, and it's a bunch of high spots, dropping guys on their heads, and a bunch of flipping and flopping without any psychology or any story. But then it's like, you look at this match, the story is so enormous. Even just forget the 3 matches that they've had, or the other 2 matches they've had this year, although that plays a big part into it as well. But just going into this match, you have had a draw with Okada and Suzuki, 30 minutes. He beat Suzuki earlier in the year, but it took him more than 30 minutes. He went an hour with Omega and went to a draw with Omega and couldn't beat him the second time. Now, he's got to beat him in 30 minutes, but the real story is not Okada's got to beat Omega. The real story is Omega's got to beat Okada, because if Omega goes to a draw with Okada, Okada will win the tournament, or win the B block, by 1 point. So he can't go to another draw. He's got to beat him. That's the only way he's going to go to the finals, is to beat Okada, who he couldn't beat in an hour, a few months ago. So it's just like the story was so huge. So the match starts, and there's no time to waste. You don't have time to just feel him out. Omega came in 2 guns blazing and just went for all of his shit right off the bat. And I don't know about you, but I actually felt at the beginning, and I guess this was kind of the point, I thought it was going to be a 5-minute match.
Yeah, we had sort of talked about that watching the final, that, I wasn't convinced it was going to be, but absolutely the thought crossed my mind that they might just end this early, just, for the shock. But I also felt to preserve both of their bodies, and I'd say more so Okada, but to me that was another part of the great psychology of this match. Not just, you talked about the brilliant, story coming into it, just how they booked it, how they set it up, but the psychology within the match of Okada. It really seemed like his neck was messed coming into the match. And so, of course, Kenny, was focusing on it and doing all this crazy stuff. And, eventually the doctor comes in. And
did you buy, that's what I wanted to ask. Did you buy the Hurricane Rana on the floor spot as legit? And did you think he was done?
I didn't, think quite to that extent, but I definitely felt like he might not be able to go anymore. This could end right here because of just the overall damage to the neck. Like, not just that moment, but just the entire tournament coming into the match that injured. I figured that, realistically any move could sort of, put him down for a while. So just that added element of, uncertainty and surprise, it just, really added to it. And, it's great to actually, as we go through this, usually bring up the website. And so it was 24 minutes and 40 seconds. And I don't know, for me watching it, it felt like it was like 5 or 10 minutes. It just was so great, so nonstop. It just felt like it just flew by.
Just this way the spot looked, to me, I just was like, that spot is brutal in the ring. And then the way they did it on the outside, the way Okada sold it, landed right on his neck. I just thought, and the fact is too with the doctor, they don't do the doctor thing. Like that's not sort of a played out thing that they do where they bring in the doctor and make it look like a match is going to get stopped. So when they actually did it, I think everybody just, at least for a split second, felt like, oh shit, there's the doctor. That's how invested people were in this moment, in this match, and in Okada's story throughout the G1, and the fact that his neck was done. So when that happened, I'll be honest with you, man. My markdom went as far as to where he pulled him up, which I think to any other wrestling fan should tell you, okay, he's fine. He went for the dragon on the apron, and I'm like screaming, don't you know his neck might be broken?
Yeah, that was definitely one of the most intense, crazy moments of the tournament, for sure.
It was scary. And I can't believe how invested I got in that whole Okada neck thing on the outside, to the point where I thought, I was actually getting mad at Omega and saying, why are you doing this to him? Do you want him to die?
Were you getting mad at Omega or getting mad at Gedo for booking him in the G1?
A little bit of both, actually. A little bit of both.
But, honestly, a point I wanted to make, we were talking about the Suzuki match, and to me, equally applicable to this match for sure is, the conversation of, should Okada have been in the tournament or not? But I think, from a mere, just from the standpoint of being a fan and seeing these matches, and just as you described, the story coming into it, and even, a buddy might have sort of predicted that, maybe Okada has a real tough match in his second last match, and that really wears him down. And that makes Kenny, kind of smell blood in the water kind of thing, and makes Okada a bit more vulnerable in the match. But also the fact that, no, if he turns around and wins, he wins the block and he's going to the finals. So from just that, the storytelling and just basically one of the main plot points of the tournament, I think that coming at it from that perspective, it's absolutely the right decision to have him in the tournament.
And I think for that reason alone, this was my match of the tournament. Because there was just so much in this match, and by so much, I don't mean moves, but there was that too. There was just such a multi-layered story, and my God, the people in Sumo Hall were invested in it. Luke Force was invested in it, and I just thought that it was absolutely fantastic. Was it the best of the three? In some ways, it had me the most emotionally invested of the three, but I've been pretty much, going crazy for all three. So, this was just, if I were to choose one, maybe it's because it's so new too, I might have to step back a few months and see how I feel, come September or October. But right now, I do feel like that one had me the most excited just because of all the things involved in it. And the story that was told, all not just in the match, but leading up the whole tournament. So absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, the payoff was exactly what we hoped it would be. And I think for me, you talk about, it's fresh. I think I kind of need to go back and watch this one and really kind of reassess it.
Yeah, and I talked about Okada not losing in a year since last year's G1. Omega and his finish, the One-Winged Angel. Ever since he returned to New Japan and signed the contract and actually came on full-time as the cleaner, and with the new gimmick, the new look, the new finisher, the One-Winged Angel, and that was right before Wrestle Kingdom 9. So late 2014 is when he came back, re-debuted, whatever you want to call it. Ever since he came back with that new finish, nobody has kicked out of the One-Winged Angel. When he hits that, nobody has kicked out. And Okada did not kick out either. Omega hit it in the middle of the ring. He hit it in the last match with Okada, but he was too close to the ropes. And I think the feeling was if he wasn't near the ropes, he wouldn't have kicked out. And you'll always have that doubt in his mind. Could he have kicked out if he wasn't near the ropes? But now we know. No, he couldn't, because he got the One-Winged Angel in the middle of the ring, and nobody has ever kicked out of that move. That's what you call protecting a finish. When someone eventually does kick out of that thing, my God.
Yeah. No one will see it coming.
No one will see it coming. So that was the B block finals. So Naito versus Omega, like we previewed at the beginning of the show, and we got together over at, what did you call it?
Palais Chuck E.
Right. Yeah. And a great little setup he has there for him and his family. A real family man, Charles Biscuits. Which you know, for those that knew him, during the more reckless Wild Youth days, I don't know if they would have seen it coming.
Yeah, lots of wrestlers kicking around, which is nice to see.
Yeah. You ever get to see any of the tapes of us wrestling?
Oh, absolutely.
Back in the day?
You guys had some epic encounters.
I've felt guilty for many, many years about things that happened in that backyard. But we
all
got
in good fun.
Yeah. We got over to his house, the three of us, and watched the finals and went spoiler-free. We got together about maybe 2 p.m. in the afternoon on Sunday and watched it and had avoided spoilers all day long, which was not easy. But going into the match, the electricity, like I said, with all 3 nights, but it was never louder in Sumo Hall in those 3 nights than it was from the moment that final started. So it was absolutely incredible heat.
Yeah, no, the crowd, really throughout this tournament at times, there were definitely a couple shows where maybe they were a little bit quieter and, there had been matches that were really tough to top. But as you mentioned, the final shows, I would totally agree that I've not seen a crowd like that. It's just, it's almost undescribable.
How much would WWE pay for that emotion?
All of the money in the world.
Naito versus Omega, the rematch from last year, almost felt like a make good, from last year. Nothing against the Goto match, but I think most people would agree, yourself included, that it really couldn't hold a candle to the match the night before.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, I guess in a way makes the Goto match even that more incredible that Kenny was able to have any match after having such an epic encounter with Naito just the night before. But, as we mentioned off the top of the show, that was definitely my match of the year last year. So, to be honest, coming into this tournament, I sort of maybe had some wavering the last couple of weeks thinking, maybe it'll be Okada Naito. Like, that'll be, the next big main event kind of thing. But in a way, going into the tournament, I really did envision that the final would be these two guys. So, it was sort of like the whole tournament was incredible, but you knew you had this one last, the cherry on the sundae, if you will, still coming. And it certainly did not disappoint. It felt to me, when we were watching, it felt like it was, 15, 20, maybe 25-minute match. It's actually 36 minutes and 35 seconds. So they definitely gave them a lot more time on this show to really, go for it. Of course, in the final, there's no time limit. So, time not a factor there. But just fantastic. And this, for me, these are the two... Well, with Okada, I guess the three biggest stars in New Japan going toe-to-toe. So just to get that. And, the fact that, to me, it's like it was a great tournament, but then even just this one show was sort of like the equivalent of like a SummerSlam, like a huge show, and like with pretty much the biggest main event since WrestleMania, but in this case, Wrestle Kingdom. And so it was just fantastic.
Now, you're a sports guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do a lot of sports broadcasting and stuff. That's how I got into this game.
What kind of sports? Like, you follow soccer or the footy, right?
Yep. And American football and hockey and basketball, baseball, yep.
So everything. You follow all sports.
Yeah.
Is there anything in sports that more impressive than what you saw Omega do Saturday night and then coming back and doing it on Sunday afternoon? Is there anything in sports that you can compare that to athletically that is as impressive as what Kenny Omega did?
Gosh, that is definitely a tough one. You think of, famous moment in sports history. I think Kirk Gibson hit a World Series winning home run with a broken leg. I think a gentleman by the name of Bobby Bond, way back in the day for the Maple Leafs, scored a big Stanley Cup winning goal with, I think, a busted ankle or something. So, those are the only other things that really. I think Michael Jordan won an NBA championship with a really bad flu, but that I think is, maybe not quite as physically draining as what Omega had gone through, and even, not just the night before, but the last 2 or 3 weeks in general. So. The athleticism of both of these guys is just remarkable.
So you would put it up there with all of the most unbelievable feats in athletics?
Absolutely, for this field of work, and it's absolutely up there. And as you mentioned, both guys banged up coming in, but I think the conditioning of the top guys in New Japan. New Japan is laughing all the way to the bank, the money bank. Because guys like Naito, Kenny Omega, Okada, they can go. And they can go 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and it's just as entertaining at the very end as it was when the bell rang. And so, this is a great match that shows that New Japan is in really good shape right now.
Right. And did you have a prediction going into this? I know we had talked about it on the last show, but things can change.
Yeah, I did really feel that Naito was probably going to be the winner of the tournament. Just
Makes
didn't
sense.
really see them giving Kenny 2 years in a row. But before we watch the match and we're talking about both possible outcomes, I think that's another example of brilliant booking, is because you could really see pretty much 50-50. It makes sense for either guy to win, have Omega do the unbelievable feat of doing it 2 years in a row. I know you said he's already elevated, he's already there, but talk about taking him just even to another platform, And then, of course, Okada keeps the belt through the rest of the year, and then we get Okada Omega at Wrestle Kingdom Part 2. And that makes sense too. But I think in the end, probably the better booking is setting up another big feud for Okada, and that being Naito. It really is, probably the two biggest guys in the company set to headline the biggest event in the calendar of that company. So I think in the end makes perfect sense. And so, I did sort of feel that Naito was probably the more likely choice.
Well, and it certainly wasn't a popcorn fart a Roman Reigns popcorn fart when it happened either. I mean, it was the right decision, There was no doubt about it when Naito won the G1 this year. I mean, that thing got over. No question about that.
Giving the fans what they want in that example, for sure.
And the funny thing is, to bring up Roman Reigns, is that Naito, to let people know, maybe some just newer fans that know this incarnation of Naito and don't know the Stardust Genius, which, by the way, he broke out the Stardust press for the first time in years, which was also incredible. He missed it. He still went for it, and I thought that was just such a great callback.
Exactly. I think in a way it's almost very punk rock of Naito being like, "Oh, you all love me now, eh? Well, remember when you used to boo me when I did this? Right. Like that was a nice little nod for sure." Say,
because this character of Naito that's just lit fire and has just been printing money. I mean, this wasn't necessarily New Japan's vision for him. He was supposed to be the smiley, happy, white meat babyface that took over Tanahashi's spot. Because even back when he won the G1, beating Tanahashi in 2013, which a lot of people didn't see coming and really did kind of get over like a popcorn fart, not on that night, but following, he was supposed to be the guy. They were already going to be phasing Tanahashi out then and making Naito the new Tanahashi, but the fans rejected it. They didn't want it, particularly in Osaka. They were brutal, booing babyface Naito, who just had to smile and pretend like, oh, it's okay, feel free. This whole character came about because they were willing to change and not be stubborn with the vision that they had. And they, obviously he went away to Mexico, and that's where this whole character was born. And they went with it, and it was money. But, if you had been stubborn and said, no, you're the baby face, we're going to keep making you the baby face, you're white meat, you kiss babies, and you hug women, and that's who you are. I'm sorry, that's all I see you as, pal. This would have never happened.
Yeah.
The parallels are there with Roman Reigns, because I don't think we'll ever know what he's capable of until they turn him heel, and it doesn't seem like there's any plans for doing that either.
Yeah, well, I mean, another example to me that you mentioned in your last comment, just something that New Japan does that, other federations don't do. And clearly it has, been, as you mentioned, a license to print money are these excursions, these trips to Mexico. You think of Naito, but then you also think of Shinsuke
Nakamura, yes.
And, becoming, in my opinion, maybe one of, if not the greatest characters or personas or just vibes in the history of wrestling. I'm freaking out at a house show like I'm an 8-year-old kid. And this is something that came from Mexico. And then, of course, same thing with Naito. And
what about Takahashi?
Yeah, of course, Takahashi as well. I mean,
we wouldn't have Daryl if we didn't send him away to Mexico.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so
I don't want to live in a world without Daryl.
No, that doesn't exist. It can't exist. But, just kudos to New Japan for, seeing the value in that, sending guys to Europe, sending guys to the States, sending them to Mexico. And it just gives them that just a real well-rounded face.
Right. And then the story coming out of all of that, too, is that he had a world title shot after winning the G1 in 2013 when he was going to be the new baby face of the company, and it was going to be against Okada, and they believed in him so little, and the fans rejected it so much that they actually had a poll to say, do you want to see Naito versus Okada in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom, or do you want to see Tanahashi versus Nakamura? And of course the people voted that, and that's why the IC title match headlined the show that year. But they went with that story, and Naito has never forgot that, and he has always brought that up in his promos about how he had a title shot, and they didn't believe in him, and the people didn't vote for him, and they thought he should be a semi. I mean, that was a big part of this whole character coming to light. So now you have a situation where now people love him. Now he's going to be in the main event. But who is he going to face? Is he going to face Okada? Is he going to face someone else? I mean, we still have a while. We still have King of Pro Wrestling, which I think would maybe be the last chance to have a big, title change in a main event. So I'm not even 100% sure it's going to be that. But if that is the case, there's the part of me that thinks, this is going to be the big crowning of Naito. But he's already been the champion, and he's already beat Okada in this gimmick. It's not necessarily something new. He's only just it's the whole thing of, well, Roman Reigns is being crowned at WrestleMania. Yes, he's held the title a bunch of times, but he's never been crowned at WrestleMania in the main event. And to me, that doesn't mean that much. But there is a lot that you can say about the fact that he's now where he is, and there's not going to be any pull knocking him out of this main event this time. And we're going to have the match that we were supposed to have that should have headlined, he could say, in 2014. So,
to be honest, I'm kind of torn on that. On one hand, I do think that it could be a more symbolic move. The fact that, he does get to headline Wrestle Kingdom and he wins the title at Wrestle Kingdom. That's something different. But I mean, a chance for him to also maybe push the heel character even further. After the streamers come down, he's going crazy. He, totally rejects it and, says, you didn't want me here, and kind of plays that up. But on the other hand, I also wouldn't mind seeing a different champion for a little while. And then, as you mentioned, there's, only 1 or 2 more big shows this year for that to happen, meaning that whoever would win the title from Okada would be going into Wrestle Kingdom as the champion. I just think they've got a number of quality options at their disposal here. And I mean, heck, I wouldn't be disappointed if somehow Omega beats Okada before the end of the year and we get Omega Naito again at Wrestle Kingdom. I would take that again.
It's definitely crossed my mind quite a bit, because you look at King of Pro Wrestling, and we'll talk about sort of the rumored matches for Destruction, and not even just rumored. I mean, it's been pretty obvious with the way they've been building some things up.
Yeah.
But for me, King of Pro Wrestling, which I believe is at Sumo Hall again, it's like, you got to have a big main event to sell that thing out. It's got to be more than just Evil versus Okada, which is why I would do that match in September at one of the Destruction shows, and I would save something else for a big main event of King of Pro Wrestling. Now, who would that be? I don't know. The first name that comes to my mind is Kenny Omega. Now, I know there's people that will be thinking, this is overkill now. We're doing 4 matches in a year. But, the idea of Omega and Okada 4 happening at King of Pro Wrestling and Omega winning the title and facing Naito, I certainly haven't ruled that out, and it's kind of exciting when you think about it, all the different ways they could go with this. So, yeah, I mean, that's that. And I don't know, for me, I don't want to see Naito win the belt and throw it down again. I don't want to see him drag it again. If you got some of the translations from the promo at the end of G1, it was much more babyface promo. Like, he was thanking the people and whatever, and doing stuff he doesn't usually do. Not healing on the fans at all. Much more of a babyface promo. So it's almost like, if he's going to win this time at Wrestle Kingdom, it would be good to have him be like a real champion. I don't mean he has to go back to Stardust Genius, but maybe a bit of a cross, because he is such a babyface. He is the top babyface in the company and the top merch mover in the company. So maybe it is time to sort of change this whole thing a little bit.
That could be a good launching pad for that at Wrestle Kingdom, though, if that were to be when they finally had Okada drop the belt. The only thing, going back to the Kenny idea, and again, I could definitely see it happening, but definitely something that makes me think that maybe that wouldn't happen is the whole U.S. title. I think they really do want Kenny Omega to elevate that belt and make it, very relevant and very treasured. And so I think they might just stick with that. Now, if Omega were to lose the U.S. title before King of Pro Wrestling, that changes everything in my books.
Now, anything else you want to say about the G1 as a whole? Any questions you want to ask or pose to the listeners?
Well, I mean, coming into this, we talked about the match of the tournament discussion. I think we sort of covered that. MVP of the tournament, to me, the one that just obviously comes to mind, you might think this is, I don't know, wacky considering who the finalists were, but to me, Okada. The story of Okada, and wow, he finally lost, and wow, finally lost to Kenny. But along the way, having 2 of my favorite matches in the tournament with Suzuki, well, obviously Kenny, but also Michael Elgin as well.
Yeah.
So
I'd say Okada, those are 3 of the best.
Yeah, and so, I mean, Okada to me is an obvious one. But there's definitely, some underdog ones. And like you talked about, Yuji Nagata, who did some great stuff. Michael Elgin as well, I think. I definitely feel like I would have liked to have seen maybe 1 or 2 more W's for him.
Me too.
A couple more 2 points up there. I would have liked if it was sort of him and Omega and Okada in the mix towards the end. But I think definitely those couple of guys were really good. But Tanahashi as well was, Mr. Reliable and just having solid matches throughout.
So any of those guys could really be a very easy choice. It doesn't take much convincing for me. One of my favorites to watch, and I think you sort of said it as well, like one of your favorite young guys to watch is Sonata. I didn't really get to say anything about the match with Kenny, and we're going to move along here, but I will say that I felt watching that that could be something big for the future.
Absolutely.
They had some really cool stuff. I know a lot of people focused on, one moonsault that kind of went wrong, whether Sonata was too close or out of position or Kenny couldn't get over, whatever happened. They just had so much cool, different counters. They just had a different way of working with each other than you see from everybody else. And it felt like something really special that you could really season and turn into something big down the road. So I love watching Sonata. The G1 this year, people that are saying it's the best G1 of all time, if you're looking at it from strictly match quality, I'd say it probably was. I mean, from the ones I've seen anyway, I haven't seen some of the earlier ones in their entirety. But for me, I mean, it's the best I've seen in the last 5 years anyway. So it was absolutely incredible from a match quality standpoint and from a story standpoint. There were just so many different stories, so many different things. There's certain people I'd like to see left out maybe next year. Tamatonga, I don't think really delivered, to be honest with you.
Toru Yano. I know some of the matches are funny, but I'd still rather see somebody else in that role.
It's true. But again, it's something that breaks it up, so I don't mind that one as much.
Does heal their bodies.
Yeah, Kojima was pretty good, but I feel like, this probably should have been advertised as his last as well, but I did think he performed very well. Mm-hmm. And Fale, I don't even need to get into that. I don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
If he's going to be in it, okay, but I mean, he got way too many wins. And was just completely undeserving. So anyway, moving on from G1, some of the rumored matches coming out of the show. Obviously, Evil and Okada, which I do believe. I know Uncle Dave said he thought it would headline King of Pro Wrestling. I'm going to contradict Uncle Dave, and I'm going to say that it will happen at one of the Destruction shows. So.
Yeah, I don't know, just the way they, played it up, to me it just seemed a lot more imminent than King of Pro Wrestling. So I would agree that it'll be one of the two Destruction big shows.
Yeah, also on one of those shows, I believe, will be headlined by Kushida versus Desperado, which is the new program for the junior title. I know you're not going to complain about that one.
No, absolutely not. It's so nice to have the juniors back. That's you'd say this G1, maybe the best tournament ever and stuff. But to me, second place, very close to this one is this year's best of the Super Juniors tournament. So I'm definitely glad those guys had a chance to maybe heal up a little bit, but definitely looking forward to see them back in action now.
Yeah, Hiromu did a promo after the G1. I'm really into these backstage promo things that they're putting together now on New Japan World.
Yes,
where they sort of take all the press conference stuff, all of it, and put it into one little package. I just think that's really dope. And they're starting to actually work angles on it, which, again, we'll talk about here. But Hiromu did, in his promo, say that he wanted to wrestle Will Ospreay. So I'm thinking that may be like a number one contenders type of match with those two going at it again, maybe on one of those Destruction shows.
I did also see, that New Japan's obviously going to do some more shows with Ring of Honor, and I believe I did see that Hiromu's going to fight Marty Scurll in Europe, I think in England perhaps, and so definitely looking forward to seeing that match.
Wow, yeah, hopefully that one gets put up on World. And also Suzuki versus Elgin. I think there's a bit of speculation that may also headline one of... It's certainly coming, whether it's coming now or it's coming in October. I actually think it will be headlining one of the shows for the Never title, him and Suzuki. Elgin and Suzuki, and I think that'll be great. I thought their match in the G1 was very good, but I think it was only the tip of the iceberg. Both guys are amazing, and the little backstage stuff that they had was absolutely like the most Suzuki thing I've ever seen ever in my life.
Yeah, and I hope Suzuki can, take some of those Michael Elgin power bombs.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a nice program. I mean, we all are expecting things are going to sort of die down for a little while, and I think that's probably a welcome change for me right now, to be honest with you. As much as I am kind of going through G1 withdrawal, I don't mind things kind of just mellowing out for a while. So that's what we'll get in September and get some good matches. But something that I do not believe will be coming in Destruction, and I want to get your thoughts as to what you thought of this, first of all, but where you see it happening. Or what you see happening. There was the beginning of the Ibushi Kenny Omega storyline, whatever that is. What did you make of this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it was much, but they obviously, they explicitly or specifically put it up and made it a big exclusive video, and it was one of the main, social media posts after the tournament. So it's obviously setting up something. I think I'm pretty much in agreement with you, though, that I think it's definitely going to be a bit of a slow build. I think they could tease a coming together, but eventually things not working out. And I think that, I think the double main event for Wrestle Kingdom will be Naito Okada and Kenny Ibushi, and I, for one, more than welcome that. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll see it sooner, and heck, I'm greedy. I'd take it sooner, that's for sure, because I think that will be one of the greatest matches of all time.
Yeah, I thought that was really well done, the backstage stuff with Kenny coming back from his match, the Young Bucks helping him, to the back, and they come around a corner. As you come around the corner in the distance, you can see Ibushi standing there, and just the reaction. I mean, the Bucks are kind of trying to keep him away from him, and then Kenny walks over to him. No, I got to see him, basically, and walks over to him, and just the complex emotions that those guys have in their relationship. It wasn't just, aggressive, or it wasn't just all love. It was somewhere in the middle. And that's a hard thing to pull off, and I thought that both guys did an awesome job just with their body language, with their facials and everything like that. So it looked like Ibushi was going to, congratulate him, console him, whatever. Kenny kind of conflicted for a minute and then sort of pushed him away and walked off. Really good shit. And to say that will be a semi-main at Wrestle Kingdom, yeah, I like that a lot. Really, the question I have for you is, will that be for the U.S. title, or will that be for the IC title?
I think they're going to keep... Yeah, well, maybe, but no, I think they're going to ride Kenny with this U.S. title for a while, so I would imagine it probably would be U.S. title. And that, again, for me, is another way where they can really elevate that belt with, having, since the tournament to crown it, the first real classic match for it. And I think that will make that belt just have a little bit more value.
Well, it's been a hell of a good time speaking with you, Ernest. Everything is Evil Matthews.
I forgot another tournament highlight was an elderly woman yelling along with the "Everything is Evil" thing. That was definitely top 3 moments of the tournament for me as well.
Well, enjoy going back and catching up on some of the things you missed, because like I say, there's a lot of little gems in there. And everybody, subscribe to New Japan World and check us out. I believe we'll be back next month following some of these destruction shows, and we can talk about where New Japan has gone over the last month, and the Kenny Omega Kota Ibushi storyline maybe will progress even further. I suspect it will, and we'll find out where they're going for King of Pro Wrestling, who could be a big challenger for Okada that could sell out that big building, because it's very important to have a challenger that can move those tickets, and is Evil in that seat right now? I don't know about that. So it's been great speaking with you, Ernest, and we'll talk to you next month. You take care of yourself, man, in this crazy world. Yeah, man, you too. Thanks for having me, and what a tournament. Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Much respect to the brothers at Smart E Marks, Justin and Steve. Much respect to Shotgun Shan and Sean Cunningham. But remember one thing, New Japanophiles. Itch, 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 itch.